I want to start today's deep dive with a question that feels deceptively simple. If I asked you to close your eyes and picture capital, if I asked you, to visualize wealth, what's the first image that pops into your head?
Oh, that's a good one. I think for, 90% of people, the default image is something physical. It's a stack of gold bars in a vault.
Sure.
It's a factory with smoke rising from the chimneys.
Yeah.
Or maybe, if you're thinking a bit more modern, it's a server farm just humming away in a basement somewhere.
Exactly. We are absolutely conditioned to think of capital as stuff, as, factors of production, tangible, touchable resources. But today, we're going to completely dismantle that assumption.
We are.
We're digging into a framework titled From Soil to Syntax, which draws heavily on the groundbreaking work of legal scholar Katharina Pistor. And the core premise here is going to sound a bit like we're, peeling back the wallpaper of reality.
It really is a paradigm shift because the source material argues that capital is not a physical object. It's not the factory. It's not the land. It isn't even the brilliant idea that's in your head.
So what is it?
Capital is a specific legal quality.
A legal quality. That's the aha moment right at the start, isn't it?
Think about it this way. A piece of dirt is just dirt. It grows grass, maybe some weeds. An idea is just a fleeting synapse firing in your brain.
Right.
A handshake deal is just a social interaction. These things only become capital, they only become wealth-generating assets when they are coded by the law.
Coded. That is the operative word here. We're going to explore this idea that the law is literally a source code, almost like software, that runs the operating system of the global economy. And specifically, we're going to up what our source is calling the Trinity of Enclosure.
Right. And this is basically the roadmap for our deep dive. We're going to trace how this legal code has, colonized three really distinct frontiers over the last few centuries.
Right. What are they?
First, the enclosure of space, which gives us the modern concepts of housing and home equity. Second, the enclosure of time, which is the dizzying world of finance and debt.
And the third?
And finally, the enclosure of knowledge, which is the realm of intellectual property.
It's almost like a strategy game where the capital player keeps unlocking new maps. First you conquer the land, then you conquer the calendar, and finally you conquer the mind.
That is a terrifyingly accurate analogy. And I guarantee by the end of this deep dive, you won't look at your mortgage, your credit card, or even a pharmaceutical patent in the same way again.
Okay, let's unpack this source code concept before we get into the three frontiers. The source material makes a very bold, very specific claim. Lawyers are the coders of the economy.
They are. And we usually get this wrong. We tend to think of the law as this rigid public thing, courts, judges, police, the Constitution.
The enforcement side?
That's just the enforcement arm. Pistor's analysis focuses on the generative side of law. The actual coding doesn't happen in a courtroom. It happens in high-rise law firms in New York and London. It happens in private contracts.
So these assets become capital only when lawyers attach specific legal modules to them.
Precise.
The sources list 4 specific attributes, 4 of these models, that turn a simple asset into a super asset. Let's run through them because this is the toolkit. If you want to understand wealth, you have to understand these 4 terms.
Absolutely. The first module is priority.
Priority. It sounds straightforward, like being first in line. But in a legal sense, this is pretty aggressive, isn't it?
It's ruthless. Priority ranks your claim above others. It dictates who gets paid when things go wrong. If a company goes bankrupt or a debtor defaults, the law has already decided who gets the remaining scraps and who walks away with nothing.
So if you have priority.
If you have priority coded into your asset, you get paid before the workers, before the pensioners, even before the taxman. It creates a hierarchy of rights that kind of supersedes social obligations.
So priority is the sword. The second module, durability, seems like it acts more like a shield.
Exactly. Durability is what allows wealth to transcend the lifespan of its creator. Historically, if a merchant died or went into personal debt, his business was liquidated to pay his creditors.
Everything was tied together.
Right. But durability, specifically through the invention of the corporation, it creates a legal separation. It shields the assets of the entity from the personal debts of the owners.
This is entity shielding, I've heard it called.
That's the term. If you, the listener, crash your car and get sued, your personal savings are at risk. But if that wealth is coded with durability inside a corporation, it's untouchable. It allows capital to accumulate over generations, safe from the messy lives of the people who technically own it.
Okay, so we have priority and durability. Then we have the third module, universality. This one feels like the real superpower.
It is the heavy lifting. A private contract is usually just between you and me.
Yeah.
If we sign a deal, it binds us. But it doesn't bind some third person in Tokyo.
Of course not.
However, if I code an asset with universality, specifically through property rights, I effectively force the entire world to respect my claim.
This is the Latin term erga omnes.
Towards everyone. Universality means the state uses its police power to enforce my private claim against billions of people who never signed a single piece of paper with me. It turns a private interest into a public obligation.
Wow. And finally, the fourth module, convertibility.
The escape hatch. Convertibility is the ability to flip your private asset, your corporate bond, your derivative, into state money, into cold, hard cash, usually at the exact moment when that asset is losing value.
We see this in financial crises?
All the time. It's the liquidity guarantee. It's the mechanism that basically says, if this private code fails, the public purse will make it whole to preserve the system.
So let's put this all together. If I have a field of corn, it's just food. It rots. It's local. It's vulnerable. But if I wrap that field in priority, durability, universality, and convertibility.
Now it's ag tech capital. It can be leveraged for millions in loans, traded globally on a futures market, shielded from your personal bankruptcy, and protected by the police. You've successfully coded the dirt into wealth.
And that transition from dirt to wealth leads us directly to the first frontier of our trinity, the enclosure of space. We're talking about land, accommodation, and home equity.
This is the foundation.
Well,
We call this static capital because, well, it sits still. But we have to remember that land wasn't always capital. For the vast majority of human history, land was social.
you mean like under feudalism?
Even before that, or alongside it, land use was often communal. You might have the right to farm a strip, but your neighbor has the right to graze cattle there in winter, and the village has the right to gather wood in the forest. It was a complex bundle of overlapping social relationships.
So you couldn't just sell the land.
Exactly. Because
Okay.
you didn't own it in an absolute exclusionary sense.
So the code enters the chat, specifically property law, and just severs all those ties.
Property law applies the priority module to exclude everyone else. It draws a line in the dirt and says, this is mine and only mine. It turns land into accommodation, a service you can monetize through rent. But the source material highlights a crucial modern shift, the move from accommodation to home equity.
This feels like the part that explains the modern housing crisis. The source distinguishes between use value and exchange value.
Right. Accommodation is use value. It's shelter. It keeps the rain off your head.
Yeah.
That is a basic biological necessity. Home equity is the financialization of that shelter. It turns the house into an asset with exchange value.
It creates a situation where the house isn't just a place to live, it's a piggy bank.
It's a piggy bank. And to do that, you need the legal code of collateral law. The mortgage is a brilliant piece of coding. It allows you to separate the monetary value of the land from the physical dirt itself. You can spend the value of the house while still living inside it.
But the source notes this creates a massive conflict of interest in society.
It does. I mean, think about it. If houses are for living, we want them to be cheap and abundant. But if houses are capital for building equity, we want them to be expensive and scarce.
And the legal code is optimized for?
The latter. It is designed to protect asset values. The source has this great line, home equity is the financialization of shelter. It locks down the physical world as a yield-bearing asset.
And the reason this is step one in the Trinity is because it anchors the whole system, right?
Correct. You can't have high finance without a physical backstop. You need a location to enforce rights, a place for the sheriff to come and serve the eviction notice. And closing space creates the physical collateral that the rest of the economy is built on.
Okay, so we've enclosed space. We've turned the ground under our feet into real estate. But physical stuff has a problem. It's heavy, it's hard to move, and it's finite. We ran out of new land a long time ago.
Right. So if you want to keep growing your wealth, but you've run out of space, where do you go? You go to the fourth dimension. You enclose the future.
This brings us to sublaw 2, finance, the enclosure of time.
I love this framing because it sounds so abstract, but it's literally what a loan is. If I lend you money today and you promise to pay me back with interest in 10 years, what have I done?
You've bought a piece of my future?
I have purchased a piece of your future labor. I have enclosed your time.
The source talks about the key mechanism here being the shift from a personal IOU to a tradable bond. Why is that distinction so important for the code?
Because a personal IOU relies on trust. If I lend you $100, I'm betting on you personally. That doesn't scale. You can't build a global economy on personal handshakes.
You have to strip the personality out of it.
You have to objectify the debt. You turn it into a commodity. Using trust law and corporate law, lawyers created legal structures where the debt can be packaged, sliced up, and sold to a stranger in Tokyo or London who doesn't know you and doesn't care who you are. The relationship is gone. Only the asset remains.
And this leads to what the source calls the alchemy of debt. This part really blew my mind. We're taught in school that the government prints money. But the source argues that private actors, banks, financiers are essentially minting money, too.
They are. And this is vital to understand. When a bank issues a mortgage, which remember is backed by that home equity we just talked about, they aren't going into a vault, taking existing gold and handing it to you.
No.
They are typing numbers into a computer. They credit your account. That money did not exist 5 seconds ago.
They are creating purchasing power out of thin air.
They are minting debt. And because that debt is coded with universality and convertibility, it functions just like state money. But here's the kicker. The law protects this private money more fiercely than it protects social obligations.
This goes back to the priority module and bankruptcy law.
Yes. Bankruptcy is the code that decides who feels the pain when the music stops. When a major company fails, the secured creditors, the holders of this financial capital, are usually at the top of the list. They have priority.
And at the bottom.
Who's at the bottom? The workers owed wages, the pensioners, the suppliers, the environment. The code explicitly ranks the preservation of financial capital above the preservation of social livelihoods.
That's why the source calls this flow capital. Unlike land, which just sits there, finance moves at the speed of light. It liberates wealth from the drag of the physical world.
But it still relies on the anchor. The math of the global financial system only works because of the collateral sitting back in step 1.
So we've got static capital, which is land, and flow capital, which is finance, space and time. But the source says there's an even higher level, an apex to the code.
Well, yeah. The problem with land is that it runs out. The problem with finance is that its risky bubbles burst, people default. Capital seeks a realm that has zero marginal cost and infinite scalability.
Enter sublaw 3, IP yield, the enclosure of knowledge.
This is the shift to the intangible. And the source argues this is the most aggressive form of enclosure because the law has to work against the laws of nature.
How so? What do you mean by that?
Because ideas are naturally non-rivalrous. If I eat an apple, you can't eat it. It's gone. But if I use an idea or sing a song or use a software algorithm, it doesn't stop you from using it. In fact, usually ideas get better the more people use them.
They're naturally abundant.
They are. So the law have to manufacture scarcity.
It builds a fence around a thought.
Exactly. It uses intellectual property law, patents, copyrights, trademarks to slap the property module onto information. It treats a genetic sequence or a line of code as if it were a private estate.
And this goes back to universality again. The state forces the entire world to respect that fence.
Right. And notice the shift in yield. In the first stage, you get yield from rent. In the second, from interest. In this third stage, you get IP yield.
Which is yield without production.
It's yield from logic itself. Think about a pharmaceutical company or a big tech firm. They don't necessarily have to manufacture the pills or build the computers themselves. They own the code, the formula, the algorithm.
Oh.
Everyone else, the manufacturers, the users, the innovators, has to pay a toll to access that code.
It's like owning the alphabet and charging people every time they write a letter.
That's a great way to put it. And unlike accommodation, ideas don't rot. They don't require roof repairs. And unlike finance, it's not just a promise that might be broken. It is a state-sanctioned monopoly power.
The source calls this absolute capital.
Yes, because it encloses the means of future innovation. If you lock up the genetic code of seeds or the source code of AI, you are determining who gets to innovate next. Future creators can't just create, they have to pay the current holders of the code.
It feels like the ultimate capture. You're not just owning the thing, you're owning the logic of how things are made.
And that brings us to the synthesis. Because when you step back and look at these three sublaws together, space, time, and knowledge, you see a pattern. It's not random.
The source calls it the algorithm of inequality.
It is a trajectory of abstraction. We start with the ground tangible, heavy, local. That's static capital. We move to the future promises, time, speed. That's flow capital. And we end up in the realm of pure law, logic, information, infinite scale, absolute capital.
It's a progression of scalability. You can only own so much land. You can only issue so much debt before people default. But IP.
IP scales infinitely with zero maintenance costs.
Wow.
And that is why the source argues that the code of capital is the DNA of inequality. It systematically hunts for these frontiers. It's a wealth maximization algorithm that runs on our legal system.
It's sobering. We usually debate inequality by talking about taxes or wages, tax the rich, raise the minimum wage. But this suggests we're looking at the symptoms, not the cause.
Precisely. You can tax the output all you want, but if the code is structured to systematically funnel value to the holders of priority and durability, the inequality will just regenerate. The machine is designed to produce that result.
So where does this leave the listener? We've seen the code, we've seen the matrix.
I think it shifts your perspective on what ownership really means. When you look at the world, don't just see buildings and products. Try to see the legal tags attached to them. Ask yourself, who holds the priority here? Who has the durability?
It's like putting on those glasses in the movie They Live. Suddenly you see all the hidden messages.
And it raises a massive question about the future.
That's actually where I want to land today. The source leaves us with this really provocative thought, this final synthesis regarding the limits of the system.
It's the question of what is left.
Right. If capital has already enclosed the space we live in,
And it has enclosed the future we rely on through finance.
and now it's enclosing the knowledge and logic we used to think.
Then the question is, what happens when absolute capital allows the owners to scale infinitely? If the entire world is coded, where is the room for anything else? Where is the room for the social, the communal, the non-capital?
It suggests that the final frontier isn't out there in space. It's right here in the legal structures we've all agreed to enforce.
But, and this is the crucial part, remember what we said at the very beginning. Capital is a code. It is a legal fiction. It is written by lawyers.
And code can be rewritten.
Exactly. It's not gravity. It's not physics. It's a set of rules. We created priority. We created durability. We created the specific definition of intellectual property.
Right.
We can patch the code.
That is a fantastic and, I think, empowering place to leave it. The world isn't made of stone. It's made of rules. And knowing the rules is the first step to understanding the game.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You can't fix a system you don't understand.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Look at your mortgage, look at your software license, and ask yourself, who coded this? We'll catch you on the next deep dive.